All right. Hello and welcome to another edition of Inside the Burrow, the FAU podcast for and by fans. My name is Dan, known as FAU for Show over at FAUAlistest.com. I am joined by Jack and Shane as usual. And tonight we are going to break down the upcoming game against Marshall, Friday night game, FAU under Friday Night Lights this week. And so FAU versus Marshall, one of those kind of similar to the MTSU series where MTSU was far and away leading the series. FAU is 1-5 against Marshall, our lone victory coming against them in 2017. But this is a series that, like I said, much like MTSU, where it's last year was rough, but I kind of think of two games off the top of my head where Marshall won on a last-second field goal at FAU. Certainly many Owl fans remember that one vividly, unfortunately. And then there was the last year, I believe it was the last year of Charlie Partridge era, where Caleb Woods dropped. We were driving late at the end of the game, and Caleb Woods dropped a first down that would have extended the game with Jason Driscoll at the quarterback. But so not really. It's a lopsided win and loss kind of scenario with, like I said, FAU being 1-5 against Marshall. But this year I think it's Vegas anyway. The line opened at 4. FAU were 4-point favorites, and I think it went up to 5.5. So again, it seems like when these two teams meet, things go down to the wire. Even if you think of the 2017 game, where that one got way closer than it should have, and we don't have to rehash that one. But kind of looking forward, there's a couple things that stand out. Certainly FAU. We talked about against Middle Tennessee. It was nice to see us be able to win a game where things weren't clicking fully. And some of the biggest news of the week kind of came with the offensive line. It kind of looks like things are shaking up and maybe shaking out a little bit, where the transfer that we had from Colorado State, I forgot his name, but he showed up, got his first action against Wagner for the last series, and then he started last week at left guard, and BJ Etienne was moved to right tackle, I believe. There's some things that we can talk about there, but again, it's going to be another close game most likely, and we'll see what we have. But I don't know, Shane, what is your opinion of Marshall this year, and looking forward to this game?
Well, Marshall's really struggling, especially on offense. They're only converting 30% of their third downs right now, and it's even worse on the road. Like, it's under 30%. Isaiah Green has just been not very good this year. His completion percentage is under 60%. He's turned the ball over a little bit. Yeah, I believe he already has 5 interceptions on the year. But though, I find it interesting that we opened up as a 10-point favorite versus Middle Tennessee, a team that beat Marshall, and now a team that seems to be struggling even more. We're only 5-point favorites over, especially in a home game in a short week. It feels kind of like a trap game. I don't know if that's what Vegas is thinking. But Marshall definitely has the talent. Like I just said a second ago, this game's going to be decided by Isaiah Green. If Isaiah Green plays well above what he's playing this year, we're going to be a dogfight. Marshall's consistently the best team on the O-line and D-line every year in Conference USA. They always have, top-end guys. They recruit at our level. They have a ton of South Florida recruits. We know this about them. But if we can go out there and force 3 or 4 turnovers, we should be able to dominate it.
Yeah, it's whether or not Marshall has enough depth at the skill positions. They always have great speed along the outside, wide receiver, running back, defensive back. So whether or not that those guys have enough gas in the tank to continue on late in the game. Normally I would say from a team up there in West Virginia or anywhere up north, that when they come to Florida, that humidity and heat's going to be a factor, but you hit the nail on the head, Shane. A lot of those guys are from South Florida in particular, and that raises a special challenge. It's as if we're playing another Florida team, just with a more inconsistent quarterback, which I feel like has kind of been the MO of Florida teams right now, if you will, if you look across the state. Isaiah Green, we're going into the season thinking that he's going to be one of the top quarterbacks in the conference, and he's just been really inconsistent. I'm not sure if that's because of a lack of a running game. Their offensive line has been solid, but maybe not as good as we're used to seeing them. Wide receiver depth isn't quite as there. Not sure exactly why he's been struggling, but he's been struggling. But the talent is there. It's just weird that they had their solid win against Old Dominion last week, but a few weeks before that, they got blown out by Cincinnati. I remember thinking when Cincinnati played Ohio State, they got blown out by Ohio State. We played better against the Buckeyes than Cincy did. But then, now Cincy might be a pretty solid team. Look what they did to UCF on national television. I know it's what's the whole relative thing. You can't really grade a team based upon how someone else did against them. But I think it just kind of goes to show how inconsistent Marshall has been. The Herd are going to be up for this game. They win this game, they're back in the conference hunt, guys. That's the way it is. They're going to have a rivalry game with Western Kentucky coming up soon. They win that game, then they control their own destiny. So we have to take this game pretty seriously, or we might see ourselves out of the Conference USA race.
Yeah, to play the relative game, Marshall they got beat by Cincinnati really bad, but Cincinnati's a good team. They beat Ohio by 2 points. Ohio lost, got just destroyed by Louisiana Lafayette. So you could say their one marquee win, out of conference win, was against a subpar opponent. Again, they lost to Cincinnati, lost to Middle Tennessee. Old Dominion wasn't much of a game. They won 31-17. But again, it's kind of it doesn't necessarily matter. Marshall's always going to be a team that's going to win 6 to 7 games every single year. Kind of just like the what's going to happen, because they do have the talent and a good head coach who he may be older in his years, and I've seen some people on Twitter kind of talk about that a little bit. But it's not going to be a game that we can expect to. I would certainly say run away with, and they are kind of right back into the mix of things with a win against us. So there's certainly a lot to play for.
Well, Dan, if you allow me to interject, I'm happy you brought up one. They only have one marquee out of conference win, if you will, but so does FAU. So when we're going into this game thinking we're favored against a team that we've always played well against. Remember last year we lost by 2 scores, but we still outgained them massively up in Huntington. We always play them tight. It's always close games. But we shouldn't really be on our high horse looking down upon the Herd. As much as I would love to do that, Doc Holliday, the great head coach he is up there, is going to have his boys ready to play in Boca. So I definitely don't want any of our fans on Friday thinking that something we might be talking about later. I don't really need to go to this game. The team's not going to need me. We're fine. Marshall's off this year. We know that Marshall can turn it on like that. And I feel like we've been saying this since the Charlotte game. I'm nervous. It's crazy how we kind of start growing expectations with how well this team is doing. While it's not been perfect, we start to grow a little bit of this thing called hope. Hope that maybe we can actually win the conference again. And because of that, each game is going to be more and more important. The stakes are even higher. So I'm just want to reiterate, we should not be looking down upon Marshall, because it's going to bite us in the butt if we do.
Marshall, just after exactly we brought it up earlier, they have 30 players from the state of Florida on their roster.
Great.
Dan, I want to go back to something you kind of opened the show with, and we're just changing subject just a little bit. You were talking about the O-line, and we were talking about some of the changes. I went back and kind of rewatched most of the Middle Tennessee game, and it kind of got me thinking, I wonder how much of an element, and I know a lot of people were under the assumption since Lane kind of called out BJ for his play earlier in the year, and I feel that they just felt he was just not doing well at left guard, that he might just be there. But I wonder how much of an element is them moving him to right tackle, because their concern is more at right tackle than it is at left guard right now. Typically in football, you don't take a guy that's struggling at left guard and move him to like the second hardest position on the offensive line and play him there. Maybe, they felt like, okay, now we have another guy, we can move him there. They played Humphrey a little bit at left guard as well, so they're kind of mixing them in. So I wonder just still how much Desmond Noel said recently this week. You're still kind of picking up the playbook, but I believe right tackle is kind of the more concern right now. Doug Johnson, I guess, has been banged up, and Marcus Robinson's still only a redshirt freshman. So it's just kind of curious they moved him there. I'd like to just kind of see how that rotation has done or continues.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of seems like, a lot of us had concerns about the O-line, and this might be, that they're putting the best guys that are out there. And again, BJ Etienne's, he said he hasn't played tackle since high school, but they're trying to get the best 5 guys out there. And if this is the way that we're able to do it and we move forward that way, again, it worked well last week. Robinson really sacks haven't been an issue. Yeah, we've given up some sacks, but it's not an issue to where the offensive line gave up another sack and Robinson's doesn't have time to let things develop. But again, things are kind of, I think, plays have changed where Robinson is getting the ball out faster. And they don't necessarily need the line to sit back there and have them, do a 7-step drop and survey the field and go through all his reads. They're quick reads, get designed to get the ball out quickly. So
that's college football in 2019, and that's why
true.
To get into more football conversation, that's why you watch football on Sundays, and a lot of people wondering why there's a lack of really good alignment in the NFL. It's just a different game. People aren't taught how to block and protect 5-step drops or 7-step drops anymore. Everything's quick, get it out of there. So linemen don't need to hold their blocks as long as they did maybe 15 years ago. Though I do think, in another thing, just kind of rewatching it, and Lane even pointed out this week, which I brought up on the podcast with some of the chunk plays people were talking about. Lane kind of said it, that it just like I said, that it's the scheme, and our corners are kind of left on an island. And I would, some of those plays that Middle Tennessee got deep plays on, they were just like really great throws and catches. The one off the goal line was against Miko Dotson. I remember on the last podcast we said we couldn't remember exactly what coverage there. Yeah, so I thought the coverage good. I thought it was Miko Dotson that was in coverage off that throw off the goal line in the middle of the second quarter, and his coverage was great. He got turned around a bit, but you couldn't ask for anything more. So Marshall, kind of like Jack alluded to, they do not have the same talent at receiver this year. They don't have a single guy over 200 yards receiving.
Wow.
This should be a game where we just kind of, Marshall's going to stay in it physically, and the offense might not look great at first, just because, Marshall's a big, fast, strong team. But, man, they should not be able to move the ball, and their defense should wear down. Mm-hmm. Almost kind of similar to how they beat us last year, right? I'm not saying we're going to outgain them. I think last year, we just played – it was the worst FAU played football game in a couple of years. We outgained them. Javon Durant, if you remember, he had a play where he just dropped the ball through his hands on a nice pass, and we missed 2 field goals. We were moving the ball. And then just out of kind of desperation, I think it was just pure frustration, like when you're going for it on 4th and 19 in Madden, and just hit 4 verticals. Lane went for it on his own 11.
Yeah.
But if you remember that game, Marshall had the field position the whole first half. I mean, they started inside our 40, I think, like 5 times. They came away with like 3 points. So there could be kind of an opposite effect this week, with their quarterback struggling, and eventually their defense is going to kind of wilt a little bit. And I think us, especially being at home, I think if it works out, that's how the game should go for FAU. And we should win this one by a couple of scores. I know it's like, pay attention to Marshall, but this team's reeling a little bit. I mean, not a nice win versus Old Dominion. Old Dominion's 1-5. That was a 1-score game with 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. So, we should win. Short week. I expect a 2-3 score win in this game.
And going back to last year, Shane, when I throw out that stat that FAU outgained Marshall last year, it should come with an asterisk because of that field position. Marshall started at worst on our own 40 almost the entire first half, while we started on their 10 almost the entire first half. It's just,
we moved the ball that game.
We moved the ball, yeah. I mean, we couldn't finish. I mean, we had to move the ball because, we had to move it 90 yards to get into the end zone almost every single drive. So while that stat should be taken with a grain of salt, it should be noted that Chris Robinson, as a freshman, was able to move the ball, without any true receiver threat, if you will, save for, Durant, who was struggling at that point last year, and Harrison Bryant.
And that was the game, if I recall, Robinson first hurt his ankle in.
Yes. And then also Cosart, that was the game where, we lost on the receiver. That's when he broke his leg as well. So,
I thought that was at home.
No, it's but look, kind of with that game, and we're talking about this game a lot, though. This is Robinson's worst game, though. He threw 4 picks that game. Like we just mentioned, he got hurt. That's when he first hurt his ankle through the season. But man, there were so many elements where we outplayed them in that game.
That happened a lot last year. Like our record.
Well, that game was a microcosm of the season.
Yeah,
it's like, we were more talented. We were moving the ball. We were doing all the right things, and then we just couldn't put it together. And then it kind of all just made it look worse than it really was.
Yeah.
So
and I think that, this year is somewhat of certainly things have improved. I think the defense has improved, and certainly the offense has improved. But again, the ball bounces a different way in some games, and here we are. Instead of being 2-0 in conference play, we're 1-1 or something like that. So, yeah, it'll be. I think it's bold to say that we'll win by 2 or 3 scores. It's just from going off of history, but yeah, I think it'll be interesting. So
I'd pick us to win, but I wouldn't pick us to cover. I wouldn't pick us to cover. That's
even at 5.5.
If I can't get what yes, I wouldn't mind. If you told me FAU's going to guarantee they're going to grind one out versus Marshall, but this is a quarterback our defense should dominate. I mean, he's not as good as Astro O'Hare, and they don't have the same receiving core as Astro O'Hare.
Yeah, true. Even though remember, I wouldn't say the receiving core for middle was really that good. We expected a lot from Ty Lee going into this year, and he's yet to have like a 100-yard game. Even though we were able to contain him last week, it's still I don't think middle receivers are all that impressive, but we talked about it earlier, nor are Marshalls. While they have the speed, they do have some raw talent. They're a bit younger, but they don't have the depth. These should be individual battles, 50-50 balls that we should be able to come up with more than not. The exact opposite of what you'd expect against us in Ohio State, where we're just hoping to get 1 or 2 every once in a while. So that's a matchup we should be looking out for.
The midweek mashup, which if you haven't read those over on FAUAllisNest.com, kind of just a good some blurbs mentioned that Marshall is 0-3 versus FBS opponents when their main running back, Brendan Knox, doesn't rush for 100 yards. So that certainly, I think, plays a lot into FAU's favor, because outside of Ohio State or UCF, FAU hasn't given up 100 yards to one quarter. Maybe O'Hare had it last week, but certainly we haven't given up 100 yards to a running back this year.
No, I looked it up. If you take out FAU's total run defense per game, if you take out UCF and Ohio State, it's under 120 yards a game.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess there's a lot of things. When you dig a little bit deeper, that FAU probably should be favored more than what they are. But who knows? Maybe Vegas is accounting for Friday night games, and I hate Friday night games. I hate week night games, Thursday or Friday. But I just feel like crazy things happen.
Well, I'm just glad we're not in the Sun Belt playing Tuesday, Wednesday night games.
I know. I was.
Everything. I've seen some complaining with fans about like a Friday night game. First of all, if he doesn't choose, Conference USA has done a good job. Like, no one in Conference USA, if you guys notice, the Conference USA slate plays noon games. So Conference USA, it's done like a lot of fighting. Be like, we're not going to bend over backwards for TV. But yeah, you get a nice little somewhat national spotlight game on a Friday night. Your team might have to play one or two all year, at least only one at home. It's not a huge deal. It's not the worst night.
Yeah.
Again, because like I said on the podcast last week, if you're a fan, you cut out of work at lunch. It's not a huge deal. Wow, you get to start your weekend early. Boo-hoo. I
wouldn't be surprised if we saw more people at this game, which doesn't, you would think it doesn't make sense. Friday night, it's, South Florida Friday Night Lats, where, things are.
Oh, I go to high school games every week, and outside of a very few,
right,
we're not like most of the high school games I go to are empty outside of parents.
Yep.
Yeah.
Georgia or Texas.
Yeah, I'm not joking. I mean, there's a few high schools. There's like a couple big games this Friday, but most high schools have less than a couple hundred people at it.
And it's a different. It's also a different fan base. So, you would think that last week was going to be the time where things were really, really busy, because there's, all the high schoolers and all that stuff, and their parents can come out. But now tomorrow, or Friday, I should say, I wouldn't be surprised if this is the game where we get 17 to 20,000. So
where was all the high school people? Because I've seen this mentioned on Twitter, and everyone's like, oh, the high school people can't go to the game. And I'm like, where were you on Saturday?
Right.
Saturday, so sometimes people, they're just straw man, they're just looking for a reason to complain.
And Marshall always travels well. So, they'll have, I don't know, maybe around 1,000 fans. They always fill up their section, certainly much more than any other Conference USA team.
Well, it's just funny that, we were 10-point favorites against Middle, and we're only, 5.5 favorites against Marshall. You'd expect it more, but let this be a challenge to our home fans. I think it's a great segue into our next segment, guys. To make some noise, make sure that when we're playing a conference team at home, it should be a double-digit spread in FAU's favor. We were just talking about this, guys, about the student organizations meeting with athletics, and they're going to start doing some little promotions to make sure that the students get involved, get into the game. Let's make that the norm from here on out. I know I want a double-digit favorite, be a double-digit favorite against Marshall, especially against FIU in a couple weeks. Every time we're at home, we should be defending Paradise, and we're going to need the students to do that from here on out.
Yeah, I agree. And FAU did run basically right after the Middle Tennessee game. I saw that they had a 4 for 40 program, I think. So, a good deal on tickets that included some food and tickets and stuff like that. So, again, hopefully this is the game where we do get that 17 to 20K that we were hoping for last week. So, do y'all have anything else to add before we wrap this bad boy up? All right. Well,
that's about it. I mean, I hope we come away with the win. Like we've been saying for the past few weeks, we keep winning out. We control our own destiny. We lose this one, we need things to fall, and Marshall's back in it. So you know that they're going to be up for it. So
yeah.
I do want to point out FIU is playing better too. We talked about this kind of the other day, and I know someone on the board kind of said compared our score to Charlotte's score. FIU's offense has not been the issue with them this year. You know, just as you guys are kind of watching, James Morgan can spin the football, and they got a lot of skill position talent. Their issue's been their defense, and particularly their run defense. They can't seem to stop the run versus anybody. So, you know, I wouldn't go as far as comparing point for point with them. You know, we'll see when they get there. But, you know, their schedule, they have a couple easier games coming up. So they're going to kind of be right in the race with us.
Yeah, they need a little bit more help than we would. But
they need major help.
I mean, it's as you know, as far as dominoes falling for them to move up in the East, but again, it's like Jack said, every game now really this is going to be important. Certainly, if we lose this game, it's not going to be the end of the season. Right now we are potentially ahead of where most people thought we would be, and FIU is below where people thought they were going to be. So. We'll see what happens. Good things, obviously, only good things can happen with us winning this game. And when you really look at things, FAU has its advantages in several key areas, and this should be a game that FAU wins. But again, it's FAU versus Marshall. It's FAU Conference USA. You never know what's going to happen. So,
one quick thing, FAU fans, since we'll have a chance to watch football all day on Saturday. 3:30 on NFL Network. Louisiana Tech plays Southern Miss. Those are the two best teams in the West. The winner of that game is probably going to win the West. Will at the very least be in the absolute driver's seat. We play Southern Miss at the end of the year, so it's kind of interesting if they win. I'm hoping not. This happened last year, and I don't know if we talked about this as we kind of look way down the road. There could be a setup where we play Southern Miss back-to-back weeks.
Yeah.
In this game, and we're playing a Conference USA championship game. So this happened last year with UAB and Middle Tennessee.
Yeah. And one more game to keep an eye out, even though we should hand them easily. Old Dominion is at UAB 4:00 on ESPN+. So if you guys can do like a little and Old Dominion's our next opponent, by the way, up in Norfolk. So if you guys can do a split screen so we can kind of do some research on Old Dominion and, potential Conference USA West champion, tomorrow is going to be the day to do it.
Yeah, definitely. So, all right. Well, as usual, we enjoyed bringing this to you guys, and we thank you for joining with us. Remember to check us out on all your favorite podcasting apps, iTunes podcasts, or Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube, FAU Owl's Nest, of course. Go over there, check out the conversation that's been going on. Little light, actually, this week in the conversations on the board. So make sure you go check that out, which I think tends to happen when you start to win games. People are less angry and they have less to talk about. So make sure you go check that out over there. And, always follow us on Twitter at Inside the Burrow there. And, we thank you guys. And we will see you guys next week when we recap the Marshall game. Thanks. Go Owls.